What we're going to be looking at today is ancient sites like Stonehenge and Avebury-Henge and numerous other ancient sites, and why they were sited in the locations the ancients deemed special, and what made those locations special. For example, why site Stonehenge where it is? If you look at where a site like Stonehenge is actually sited, it's on sloping ground. It made the standing stones to stand upright, a difficult location. So what made that location special? If we turn to ancient Egypt and we look at the pyramids, why place the pyramids where they did? To myself and other investigators into earth energies, we look to the patterns and the lines that the earth produces naturally. And these patterns, like we all have our thumbprints and that's unique, it's a pattern. Our DNA is a pattern. Mother Earth, our one mother, she produces amazing patterns that can produce healing energies, energies that enhance our ability to communicate, and energies that can be detrimental to our health. So we're going to be looking at all the different expressions of Mother Earth, which in a way is the secret language of Mother Earth. And by the end of this talk, you'll be able to go into your own homes and have a look to say, is this a detrimental line in my own home? And then we can see how the ancients recognized the energy system of the earth and integrated it into their ancient sites. And I'm going to show you how the ancients, literally, when they put a standing stone into the earth, could generate energy. And that's quite a wide statement, and that's quite a fantastic statement. But I'm going to show you evidence for that. So we're going to open up with a picture of Stonehenge. Stonehenge is a mighty feat of engineering skills. When people go there, and who's been to Stonehenge in the audience? Oh, wow, loads of people have been to Stonehenge. It feels different, doesn't it? It feels that it's got something. It feels that it has spirit of place, yeah? Now, when we go into ancient cathedrals, for example, and we go into medieval churches, they have something that you can't define. They have spirit of place. And we're going to be looking at some churches and what gives the church its spirit of place, and what gives a cathedral its spirit of place, same as an ancient site. Now, our ancient ancestors were fully aware that the earth emits certain patterns. They moved stones on the energy lines. We'll have a look at that later. I mean, on this next slide here, I don't know if you've got that slide up at all. It shows Stonehenge, and literally people lifting the stones upon Stonehenge because they couldn't move the stones like our ancient ancestors did. And these stones are very heavy, but they were very particular about where they sited the stones. The stones had to be sited on an energy pattern we'll have a look at in a moment. So Stonehenge is literally an ancient site sited on energy lines that irrigates the landscape with energy. When we turn to 17 miles north of Stonehenge, we have a wonderful ancient site called Avebury-Henge. Avebury-Henge was ginormous. It covered 3 miles of the ancient landscape. And this antiquarian picture, drawn in the 18th century by William Stukely, shows you the extent of it. It covered 3 miles, 6 kilometers of land. It took over 800 standing stones to create this ancient site. Why? Why did the ancients go to so much effort and hard work to carefully define worldwide where they placed these monuments? Because this monument here at Avebury could contain thousands of people. Why were thousands of people going to these monuments? That's what we're going to be having a look at. They were very careful about the stones that they picked. The stones that they picked were quite magnetic in their properties. In fact, I was talking to an archaeologist only last week called Michael Parker Pearson of the Stonehenge Project, and I've always said, the altar stone at Stonehenge, it had garnet in it. Most of those stones at Stonehenge had crystals in it. Those crystals and those stones would come alive when you place them on an earth energy pattern, and their magnetic properties were enhanced by the energy patterns upon which they were sited. And the next slide shows you a stone at Avebury Henge where you can literally sit on. It's called the Devil's Chair. It should be called the Druid's Chair, actually, because you can actually see a sunrise alignment from this seat at Avebury if the bank wasn't in the position it is, because that's a modern feature, Avebury. So these stones had magnetic properties. Next time you're at Avebury, if any of you do intend to go to Avebury, take a compass, your normal bog-standard compass, go to the Devil's Chair, raise your compass up the chair, and just where you sit by your third eye chakra, you'll find magnetic anomalies. The needle will start to swing. So the ancients were specific about who sat in that chair would start to be in a magnetic field, yeah? And that's quite interesting. We'll have a look at magnetic fields later. Now, some of the energy lines that go through the land can be healing. We'll have a look at those in a moment. And at Avebury Henge, for example, there are enormous energy rivers flowing through there that were recognized in ancient China. And Avebury is a particular healing temple. I mean, this shot, a photograph that I took, shows the moon. And this conference coincides with the blue moon today. So I don't know if that was intended by Dolores' team, but yeah, we've got a blue moon today. So these ancient sites, like Stonehenge, like the pyramids, like Avebury Henge, were sited on the energy patterns, and that's what we're going to have a look at, because it's where you site something gives it power. Now that could be your house, your hospital, an ancient site. We too today can utilize the wisdom of our ancient ancestors, and that's my hope and my dream, and I'll show you that through the presentation. Because if we can utilize and put certain buildings on these energy lines, we'll create a much better society. Now, if we look at the concept of ley lines, for example, I'm sure most of you here are familiar with the term ley line, yep? Yep. Basically, a ley line has 5 or more ancient sites sited upon it. And on the slide that you can see now, you see 2 of Britain's longest ley lines. One was discovered that travels east-west, was discovered by the late John Michell in the 1960s. And Avebury Henge is sited at the exact centre of that energy line. And then another line courses north-south, which is often termed the 51st parallel, that links Stonehenge to Avebury. So let us see these energy lines as like rivers of energy, rivers of light coursing through the landscape. And it was a remarkable feat of our ancient ancestors to locate Avebury at the exact centre of that ley line, because the topography through the land is of hills and of valleys, but they knew where to put these ancient sites. They were utilising the power in the land. Our ancestors here today, well, those of us of like Celtic stock, our ancestors didn't write anything down, nothing. The Druids had an oral tradition. So we don't really know about the energy lines and how the Druids and their predecessors thought about them. But there is evidence from ancient China. And the Chinese were great. They documented everything. And they said that a ley line is like a carrier line of energy. Now, entwining that ley line, if you imagine, there's 2 currents of force, 2 huge rivers of energy. One is deemed yin, and one is deemed yang in ancient China. In fact, to the ancient geomants of China, they had a word for this, a collective word. They called these energy lines Long Mei, the power of the dragon, the power in the land. And wherever these energy lines crossed or co-joined together was deemed especially favorable. In fact, it was reserved only for the emperor's tombs and palaces and places of healing. In Britain, we can clearly see in this slide that these energy currents entwine the ley line and they flow through numerous ancient sites, as if irrigating those sites with energy and with power. Long Mei, the power in the land. Now, Hamish Miller and Paul Broadhurst in the 1980s, they said, well, they discovered this energy system. And they wrote a fantastic book called The Sun and the Serpent. It really is a seminal book on Earth energies. And they called the yin line Mary and they called the yang line, like a meandering river around the ley line, Michael. So really we have a threefold energy system here. We have the ley line, and we have these two currents entwining it like a caduceus. The reason why they called them Mary and Michael was because they noticed that every 10 or so miles along the Michael Earth energy current, there was a church dedicated to St. Michael or St. George, dragon slayers. And they also noticed, literally about, again, 5 to 10 miles along the meandering yin current was a church dedicated to Mary Magdalene or the Virgin Mary.